Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Into the Dojo. Today we have Pabla Ayala from pFunk Media, a public relations company. Pabla, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Absolutely. Now, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about pFunk Media and how you guys are different than other public relation companies out there?
Sure. pFunk Media is a public relations startup. Basically, we focus on telling stories in a compelling way that's completely content-driven, and we do focus on startups and technology. So we take your company, we define specific opportunities, media opportunities that you may have, and try to capitalize them and make as much noise for your company as possible. And it's not just noise, it's noise with a message.
Oh, that's awesome. And like public relations, it's something that I think a lot of startups and entrepreneurs just don't really get. You know, they think of like public relations as, yeah, I'll email TechCrunch or I'll email NextWeb and I'll email like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and they'll cover my startup. So what are some of like the most common misconceptions that startups and entrepreneurs have regarding public relations?
Well, I think that you just hit on the very first one, and probably the most prevalent is, why do I need to hire a PR company or email TechCrunch, or I could email the NextWeb or whatever. The truth of it is sure, you can, everybody can, but the difference is how valuable is your time, number one. How dollars to cents, does it make sense for the CEO of the startup and the company who's supposed to be running the entire operation? Does it make sense for him to be spending, 3 or 4 hours a day data mining, trying to find emails or telephone numbers or sending pitches that, number one, may not be crafted to get these media contacts' attention, and number two, that's a lot of time spent, basically digging through the internet to get the information you need. So what I'm here to do is I'm here to streamline, first of all, to identify key media opportunities. A lot of startups don't know exactly what is newsworthy because, looking from the inside out, it may be really, a different view that you have on what's newsworthy, rather than somebody who's constantly looking through headlines and looking at the trends of what people are talking about and letting you know exactly what's being talked about out there and what your company has that I could leverage for media use. And not only that, but we invest a pretty large chunk of our budget, of our yearly budget, on getting systems that give us the contact telephone numbers, emails, Twitter handles, telephone numbers to all of these contacts at the touch of a button. It doesn't make sense for a startup like, let's say, LiveNinja to opt in for this type of service that could be extremely costly. So I am able to leverage my contacts at a fraction of the fee that these other services give you this information. And I think, thirdly, also, it's really important to make sure that you optimize your media opportunities. A startup only has so many. Your launch is crucial. If you blow your launch, you may blow your giant splash onto the scene. And that's very difficult to take because you don't know as a startup how many more of those media opportunities you're going to get down the line.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there, they don't understand what's involved with public relations. I think they just think that it's it just has to deal with the press that you get, and there's a lot more involved with public relations than just press, right? And maybe you could touch on a few things that is the full scope of public relations outside of just getting you press out there.
Well, a lot of public relations is getting you press, but a lot of it also has to do with you communicating your ideas in understandable terms to the mass populace. So, you may be extremely tech focused and you're so down into the trenches that you're using perhaps jargon or lingo that only a certain part of the population may be able to digest and really understand. So it's my responsibility, when you come out and reach out to me, is to ask questions and say, okay, well, I know that this makes sense to you. This may make sense to me, but it may not make sense to, Debbie down the street, who could be a target audience that you want to be able to reach. So
Right.
we have to kind of cater different messages and change the communication strategy that you're going to approach your target market with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
A lot of it also,
go ahead.
sorry, a lot of it also has to do with, being able to present your ideas really clearly.
Right.
And I think that you are a great example of this. You are very conversational. You make people feel really at ease, and it's very simple to talk to you, and you don't talk in very technical terms. And I think that you do a great job of this, but a lot of people out there, especially in the tech community, don't necessarily know how to relay that same type of demeanor across.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a big compliment coming from you. And yeah, like storytelling is a huge part of it. My co-founder Alfonso showed me a video the other day that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think, we should take that same message when it comes to PR, is that you should communicate the reasons and the mission behind your company, and not just what your company does and why people should buy it. So storytelling, I think, is a really big part of, just getting your brand out there and resonating with people. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Storytelling is a huge part of it. And it depends on how you tell that story, if it's compelling or not. It's not enough these days to say, XYZ startup just launched.
Yeah, it's a dime a dozen.
It's not enough to say that anymore. Yeah, it's a dime a dozen. And even if you have, a dollar amount of funding, let's say you've raised $1.2 million in funding, it's not necessarily enough anymore.
Yep.
You have to be able to really tell your story and what differentiators make you special from all of the other Tom, Dick, and Harrys out there.
Right, absolutely. I think also
differentiators are keys.
Definitely. And I think a mistake also that people make is they think like, okay, sure, I want to get in TechCrunch, or I want to get into the New York Times or something like that. And they just kind of do a spray and pray approach, and they kind of don't necessarily, they think they're pitching towards a publication, and really you're pitching to writers, specific writers that cover, that industry. And I think that's a mistake that I think a lot of entrepreneurs make, is they're like, oh, sure, I'll just email, the Wall Street Journal as soon as I'm ready, and they'll pick it up. When they don't think about targeting Wall Street Journal. You got to think about targeting a writer within the Wall Street Journal that actually would be interested in covering you. And I think that's, one of the main value adds that a PR company like Funk Media can bring, is that what writers cover which topics and which segments that they're interested in, and you can hyper focus on that, right?
No, it's absolutely true. I think that the number one pet peeve of writers is when you just spray and pray,
right,
and send them a piece of information. Let's say that they cover news and entertainment for the Wall Street Journal, and you're sending them information about a new startup, or if you're sending them information about a new cooking school, or whatever it may be, they're immediately, first of all, you're creating noise in their inbox. It's another email that they have to toss in the trash. You've wasted precious seconds of their time, and you've already kind of labeled yourself as kind of like a bonehead. You're not doing your research.
Right.
You're not taking the time to make sure that this is a targeted writer who is interested and writes about the stuff that you want to talk about. So, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're wasting your time.
Yeah, and you're burning a bridge, right, at the end of the day, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. That too. And, a lot of the times you don't necessarily want to, forward the exact same email over and over again. This is also a common mistake that a lot of people make in this business. They think that if I take one email and I BCC, 85 different contacts all at once, like somebody's bound to reply. And that's absolutely not the truth. If you are blind copying 87 people, you are going to have 87 people block you on their email system the next time that you try to go to email, because you're clearly They see you as an amateur. They see you as not seriously. And if you really cared about a journalist covering your story, the journalist thinks that you should take a couple of minutes
Sure.
to personalize each email
Right.
to that specific person. You can take the bulk of the email and you can, copy and paste some of the essential messages that aren't changing from, recipient to recipient, but at the same time, you're going to want to acknowledge, or you're going to want to personalize the message specifically for each writer that you're targeting.
Absolutely.
Always inserting kind of like a compliment of their previous article that you really enjoyed reading, or a recent article of a similar topic of interest that has a tie to what you're trying to pitch them, and say, hey, along those lines, have you ever thought of, and then inserting your pitch in there.
Right.
That's also a really good way of trying to get that writer's attention, to say, hey, you know what? This isn't a bot that is sending me this email. This isn't just, some junior PR person trying to make their boss happy by sending out, 250 emails today. This is actually somebody who reads and cares.
Absolutely. That's such great advice. And I think also, an entrepreneur very well could have a company that's good content for a TechCrunch and a CNN to post in both places, but the message that you send and the pitch you send to TechCrunch and the pitch you send to CNN is very, very different, and has to cover different aspects of your business to make it relevant to that audience. And you're right, you can't just BCC 70 different publications and hope one of them responds, because the message across all different publications is not going to resonate.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so
another actually.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it actually reminds me of another, common misconception that a lot of companies looking for publicity are completely misguided on, and that is, if I write a press release and I send it out, I pay a wire service like Business Wire or whatever, I'm going to get stories written up about me. People are going to start contacting me, journalists, or my phone's going to be ringing off the hook. That does not happen. A press release is really for SEO purposes, and it's, if you have investors, or if you have stakeholders that want to see the progress, the actual, documented progress of your company, it's a great way to do that. It's a great way to show the growth and the evolution of your company and your business.
Right.
But it's absolutely not a way to get your story written up in Inc. magazine.
Yeah.
I've actually, in my years doing this, I've never sent out a press release and gotten calls back saying like, oh my gosh, like let's schedule an interview, I saw that press release. Usually what helps is that the press release validates my pitch, and it says, hey, this company, this is what they're doing. Take a look at their recent press release. This is what they're about. I would love to schedule an interview. Please give me a call.
Right.
And that's how you get interest from, certain writers out there. But a press release, you should not rely on that. And that shouldn't be your only form of trying to secure some press out there.
Absolutely, and that just goes to show why you kind of need a good partner in this, because each company is different, right? Like some companies need to send out a traditional press release and approach it one way. Other companies maybe don't even need to invest in a traditional press release and can approach it in a different way.
Absolutely.
So that's why having a partner, I think, helps. So quickly back to Funk Media, you run things a little bit differently than a traditional PR company. You don't necessarily take any client that walks through the door. You guys are kind of highly selective. So can you tell us a little bit more about what differentiates you from a traditional PR company?
Yeah, well, we are just like any other startup. We are kind of working our way through some trial and errors, and we're trying to see something. We're trying to kind of experiment with a different model of how a traditional PR company works. And something that me and my partner, Camila Souza, have really kind of taken to heart and adopted as the core belief in our business is that, startups, statistically, what is, the likelihood that a startup is going to succeed and, flourish and thrive and become, the next Twitter or Instagram or Facebook? It's very, very small. Odds are, startups are bound to fail. And that's fine. That's part of being an entrepreneur, and that's part of being a startup and trying to learn from your mistakes and, iterating and moving on. But one thing that we do believe is a true entrepreneur at heart, somebody that is full of ideas and really is dedicated, is not going to stop at their first failure, second failure, third failure, whatever it may be. They're constantly going to turn and pivot and change their model and come out with a new idea or improve on one that's existing out there to really make a difference in the market. And that's something that we really look forward to exploring more out there in our prospective clients. We really want to find these entrepreneurs that are so dedicated and so talented and are looking for a PR company that is going to invest in them just as much as in the company that they're trying to build at the moment, and that doesn't necessarily have the price to pay for a large PR firm. We are a startup PR firm, and we operate at startup prices. We are, two extremely dedicated and efficient workers, and we want to be hands-on with all of our clients. We don't ever want to take on, 40 different clients. So Camilla and I don't know what's going on in each company. We want to be extremely involved. We don't want there to be any miscommunication internally on our end, because that, as a communications company, that's what you're selling. And we want to be able to know what's going on with each one of our clients hands-on at all times.
You girls are like the Jerry Maguire of PR companies, right?
You could say that.
That's how I see it. And one of the best things, one of the main differentiators from you guys is you guys have a LiveNinja profile, which makes you a really awesome PR company, right? So people can contact you and pick your brain and talk to you, get some tips about what they should do. So if somebody was to and we'll put a link at the bottom of this video where you can reach Pabla at LiveNinja. So if somebody was to book a LiveNinja session with you, what are some of the advice that you can give them on the initial call?
Well, first and foremost, if you have a business that you're looking to launch, or if you've already launched and you're looking for some strategy on media opportunities that you may have coming up, I could definitely help you isolate those opportunities and tell you how I would approach trying to get press and trying to get media around those different opportunities. Another thing would be, what kind of publications would best be suited to reach your target markets and your target audiences. I could definitely help with that and let you know which of these magazines are best suited to reach your markets and your audiences.
Okay, awesome. That's perfect.
Another thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and another thing we specialize is, social media and communications for your company.
Okay, great. And what does that entail exactly when you say that? When you say like communications, like what are the services that are involved there?
Well, we do help in craft the communication of your branding and your messaging on your website. Everything should really always be uniform. There should be one overall message that you're trying to drive through all of these different vehicles, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, your website, your LinkedIn. All of them should kind of reverberate the same central message. And as well as your logos, your look, your feel, it should all come like they're coming from one specific central location, one specific thought. And that's something that we help companies to try to do, especially when you're a startup and you know what you want to do, but you don't necessarily have the correct words.
Right.
Or my favorite is when you get onto a website and there's, 2 pictures and then like 1,000 words of text on the website.
Sure.
Nobody is going to read through all of that text. Nobody's going to click through a million tabs. You have to make it simpler. It's a click-through society that we're living in
Right.
with very short attention spans. You've got to make it as easy for your audience to get to the information that they need.
Completely agree. So as you guys could see, Pabla's completely legit. She knows her stuff. So reach out to her on LiveNinja. We'll also include a link to Funk Media if you want to reach out to her directly and talk with her. Pabla, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Will. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.